Boom, hello, and welcome to the Protector Nation podcast, a podcast that is dedicated to making the world a better place, making the world a safer place by making good people dangerous. In this podcast, we're going to study and understand what it takes to protect your family, to protect your loved ones, because we all know that you have a few basic needs, food, water, and shelter, but you also have the need to protect those things. In a world and society where evil runs rampant and is sometimes left unchecked, learning how to protect yourselves and your loved ones is becoming more and more important. And so we strive to raise the level of accountability to those who would do evil on this planet by making sure that the sheep, that the flock, is more well-versed in protecting themselves and their loved ones. If that sounds interesting to you, then sit back and enjoy the show out.
Boom, what's up, you guys? Byron Rodgers here for another awesome podcast episode. We have we're blessed to have some amazing guests on the show. And today I have the honor of interviewing Hooten Young of Hooten Young Whiskey and Cigars out of Orlando, Florida. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Byron. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's an absolute honor, sir, to have you, on the podcast. I know most people will recognize some of your impact in the world from the Black Hawk Down movie. Hoot, the probably the best character in the movie was modeled after you. What would you say about that anyway?
Well, I can't take credit for that. It was really kind of because it was a movie. They were trying to shove a lot of stuff into a short period of time. There are actually several characters that could have easily used their names in there as well. So it was kind of an amalgamation of several people. But I was very, very, very fortunate to have served with each and every one of them and consider them all friends. So, but I ended up somehow or another getting my name stuck on it. But really, the credit goes to everybody in that organization and the guys that were there with us, the Rangers and everything else. So can't take credit for all of it, but it was an honor to be there with them.
Yeah. Spoken like a true warrior, spoken like a true warrior. I really value that response. It's that, and it's the guys that have really been there and really done things like that just know, it's an honor for us to serve next to the people and be part of the tribes and things that we were able to be a part of, so yeah, no, that means a lot. I love hearing that. And I think, but yeah, let's get into it. I mean, you did a whole lot with the, as a Delta Force, was it Master Sergeant at the end of the day?
I was a Master Sergeant, and I served as a Troop Sergeant Major there in C Squadron. So
wow,
one of the greatest honors of my life was serving with those guys and seeing the magic that they're capable of working when they put their heads together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And then I guess let's just dive into a little bit more of your background, kind of where you've been and what you've done. It's a whole lot of things, and I don't want to miss anything. And I know you're a humble guy. You don't like bragging about yourself, but, we want them to know who they're listening to. So if you don't mind, let's get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, well, I was, pretty humble beginnings. I was a kid from West Texas, grew up in a little ranching community near Del Rio, Texas. It was called Bracketville. Bounced around a little bit, joined the Army right out of high school, and had no idea what I was getting into or where it was going to take me. I didn't think it was going to be a lifetime commitment. It was going to be a short 3 or 4 year tour, trying to kind of figure things out. I didn't have any means to go to college or anything like that. Like at the time, there wasn't a lot going on for a goat roper from West Texas. So the Army was the next best thing to nothing. So joined and went in and went into the SF Baby program, started out in 5th Special Forces Group, learned a lot. I was very, very fortunate to be in a great company. It was A Company, 1st of the 5th, and it was full of legends from Vietnam, and learned a lot about soldiering from some of the best soldiers of their generation. And then after about 5 years in, I went and gave a Delta Force selection a shot and was lucky enough to make it in there. And that was about 1986, 87 timeframe. And I served there until 2002. So a little over 15 years, I guess, there. And there was never a day that I went to work in that building. I still remember the first time I walked in there. I was in absolute awe of the place, but more importantly, the people that were in that place. And the funny thing was, I went to work there for 15 years and was in awe every day, and was still in awe when in the day I left. So it was never one of those things that you get used to. It's just a wonderful bunch of guys and a great place to work. And I was very lucky to do it.
Wow.
Started out as a team member on an assault team and stayed there long enough to work myself up into a troop sergeant major position, which is a cool place to be. Used to call it the fist of God, but
That's so good.
Yeah, it was a cool place to be, great job to do, and great, even better place to be with the people.
Yeah, that makes all the difference. That makes all the difference is the people and the relationships and operating. I think something a lot of vets deal with getting out is just having a tough time finding tribes and communities that have the same values and can operate at the levels that we have to operate out in the field.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think I've seen, later in life, I became a pharmacist and I worked with vets and substance use disorders and PTSD. And one of the common themes is that they can't seem to find that, as you say, tribe to identify with on the outside. And the truth of the matter is they just never will, because it's a very unique, military is a very unique experience. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Delta Force or the Marine Corps or the 82nd Airborne. I mean, it's a special culture that crosses so many demographics and brings so many different people from different backgrounds together that it's funny. I was telling a friend of mine the other day that there's not a day that goes by where I don't get a call from somebody I served with from the other side of the world, and you don't forget each other. So it is oftentimes closer than family.
Yeah,
and it's hard to replicate that on the outside.
Absolutely, without the struggle and without the necessity and demand being placed on us. And then for any vets listening, man, that are struggling with that, something I talk about a lot here, but I don't think I can mention enough because guys are out there fighting their own fights, is just, if you're dealing with that, find a new fight, man. A warrior without a purpose, a warrior without a fight, man. I believe that eats our souls. We've got to have something to lean into. And then as you find that fight and you contribute, right? Because being a warrior, I believe, is about contribution and servanthood. As you contribute from that space that is your fight, the thing that you want to give to the world, it has a tendency to attract people that are also can believe in that journey and that path. And you might find them that way. Never like the military, but valuable things.
Well said, Byron. That was profound, and I agree with you. I think one is finding that mission. Two, finding a group of people that you don't want to let down, and that's those are two important components of life. Yeah,
that's good stuff. Finding that group of people that you don't want to let down, that makes all the difference. We die over that, so that's big, and live for it. That's awesome. So I guess diving into, Operation Gothic Serpent and Black Hawk Down, just for everyone listening, the Battle of Mogadishu. How did the movie do in depicting that encounter, that engagement?
So I think the movie did a really good job of capturing the intensity of it. It is a movie, so they're trying to shove a lot into a short period of time and then capture the entertainment value.
Yeah.
But I think it did a good job of capturing the intensity of it and the general purpose of it. I know it was really, I think, in my humble opinion, it was a good event for the Army. I think there were a lot of people. I know people come up to me all the time that are young bloods. They come up and say, "Hey, look, I joined the Army because I saw that movie, and what you guys did inspired me to go become a soldier." That's a wonderful thing, and so I think it was very good from that standpoint. But it was very difficult to capture what was really a couple of months in Somalia and roll that into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, 100%. I can only imagine, but I did, like, even as I was watching the movie, doing my homework for this interview last night, I remember the pace. I remember the pace of the combat and all those different things. And it brought me back to certain things we experienced in Iraq. And I was kind of like, man, I feel like they did a pretty good job of helping you feel that, like, hey, we've got to make decisions. We've got to make moves. We've got to keep thinking. We got to keep, even during the down times, you're still kind of like, all right, how are we positioning and things like that. So it's very interesting. It's good to hear that. And then one huge question I generally ask at the beginning of the podcast is, who are you at your core, sir? Who are you deep down inside, man? Hooten Young.
Yes. Well, I still try to stay pretty grounded in my roots. I grew up, rural West Texas country boy, grew up in a church, raised by a Baptist minister, and have strong, powerful love for my country and for my family. And I try to keep those things number one in my life. And those are the things that will get you through the hard things, like Mogadishu. I can remember thinking there were times there where it would have been easy to kind of lose focus, but you're thinking, hey man, I'm going home to see my family after this, regardless of what happens, no matter what happens next, no matter what they throw at me. I'm going to take care of this 1 meter of ground until I get to the next 1 meter of ground, and I'm going to make it through the night because I got to. And so I think just being a blue collar, hardworking, disciplined person, get up in the morning, go to work, take your hard hat and your lunchbox to everything you do, and give 100%. So that's and be persistent, in your endeavors. So I try to stick with that, and I try to teach my kids to follow those rules, because I think, when you run into, when things are going easy in life, and for some people, they just go through life like a hot knife through butter. Everything's easy and they're never challenged. That's not most of us. Right? Most of us don't have that. Most of us are not silver spoon kids. We all are going to be challenged at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have some sort of solid foundation to fall back on when everything else around you starts falling apart, that you can land on solid rock, and you can always, survive and pick it up and come out of it not only intact, but come out of it a better person, right? Better and stronger than you were before. And so it's kind of what I stick to. It's pretty basic, but those are my rules, kind of.
Yes, sir. Those are the good rules, man. That's the good stuff. I think sometimes as strong young men, especially, we get distracted, I think, into the, the external stuff and the capabilities we have in our physical bodies. And I think that when, especially looking at someone who's had a career as successful and as long as yours, the longevity is some fruit that's worth trying to understand. Those values, man, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, right? Leonardo da Vinci. Those values really help guys keep the wheels on, and will help us keep, because there's just stuff I run into that's just stronger than me. It's smarter than me. It's more sophisticated than I am. I'm the same.
Hey, man, and that's when you really find out who you are. I mean, right? You never run into those things. I look back on the things that I've been through, not only in the military, but in my personal life. And I go, man, at the time, it's really easy to sit down and feel sorry for yourself and think about how lucky you are, and how you're getting a raw deal. But I look back on it, and those are the things that make you special in the end. Those are the things that are going to give you the tools you need to move forward and do bigger and better things. And I look back on it now, and I wouldn't trade any of those bad times for no matter how bad they were, because really they prepare you for the even more difficult things to come. And they really, without those things, you can't really be great. They're very important in developing as a person. I think it's God's way of kind of training us for greatness, right? And you can either survive it, or you can just roll up and quit, and that's not an option.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the good stuff, man. I've learned far more from pain than I've ever learned from pleasure.
Absolutely, right? There's no easy way.
Yeah.
There's no easy way. And if there is, at some point it will fail you.
Yeah, it's a trap.
Right.
That's good stuff. Awesome. Well, let's see, switching back into, Operation Gothic Serpent and Mogadishu, what kind of major takeaways did you walk away from after that engagement?
Well, I guess the first one, and I always go back to this, people ask me this, is that relationships that you have with the people that you work with every day, and the people you're working with when you're in a situation like Mogadishu, is extremely important. They kind of smooth things out and allow communication to flow better under stress. So like for instance, when I was a young soldier, learning to call for fire, and they were, drilling you on got to follow the procedures. And when you get out there in combat and everything's going crazy, and you're calling this pilot, and you're trying to follow the checklist, and he knows you, and he says, "Hey, Norm, just tell me where you want it." Right? And so those are the things that make things easier in combat. So, and you understand each other better. So you're anticipating what other guys are doing, and it becomes more personal, and it's not so mechanical. And when that happens, I think things work more efficiently, and you have exponentially more combat power by building relationships with the people you're working with. And don't waste time doing it, because you never know when that day may be. So you can think, well, I'm just going to go through this and I'll do my job, but there's no such thing as my job in combat. It's a team job. So you reach out to learn not only how your colleagues work when they're on duty, but learn about their families, learn who they are as a person. And it gives you a tighter commitment to each other as well. And that without that commitment, you're not going to be nearly as strong as you would be if you're fighting for somebody that you absolutely love and know. So I think that's the most important thing that I've learned, in not just in Mogadishu in combat, but in other operations as well, is that build relationships and build strong relationships. Next to that, training is everything, and it starts with the individual training, and it's your individual responsibility to train yourself, and don't just train on things you like to do. Train more. It's more important sometimes to train on things that you don't like to do, because that's what you're going to find out when you get to combat, is that, hey, all that training you spent on the range with a 45 shooting El Presidente, that was cool, but that's not happening today. Right now we're loading the Mark 19, and we're doing stuff like that. So work on the stuff that you don't like to do, and then if you have time left over, do the fun stuff. But do the stick with the basics. Train on stuff that you don't necessarily feel comfortable doing, because can almost guarantee you that the stuff that you are uncomfortable doing is the stuff that you will be doing in combat. So don't just go out and do what I call the pretty boy stuff. Get down into the basics and do the nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. That's the truth. A lot of people lean towards their strengths. I'm even guilty of it at times, being like, yeah, man, we're just going to do what we do. I like doing my firearm stuff. We're going to play with firearms, but now you got to get on the mats. You got to do all the stuff.
You got to, man. And it really is, Byron, about the basics. I look back on, people always ask about, hey, what did the Delta Force guys do that was really super cool? And they really didn't do super cool stuff. They just did very basic stuff, but they did that very basic stuff very, very well. Yeah. And the analogy that I would use is in jiu-jitsu on the mat, at a certain point, everybody knows the move, man. I mean, when you get out there and you're on, and by the time you're a good blue belt, everything a black belt knows. But he applies it better, and he applies it more creatively, right? So, but the arm lock looks the same if a white belt does it or a black belt does it. It's just how they get there, right? And so the most advanced combat units in the world really are masters of the basics. So learn the basics and practice the basics and drill on them, and don't neglect them. Everybody wants to go I want to go spend all my time skydiving or doing something else. Those are important things, but that'll just get you there. Then you're thrown into the mill, and you're going to have to rely on your basic knowledge of soldiering.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome, man. That simplicity is so important. The relationship equity thing you're talking about is huge in life, business, combat. It's amazing how these things can just be so interchangeable. These value systems,
Absolutely.
That blows me away sometimes. You think you're just two vets talking, then you realize you're talking about like marriage and life and relationships all in the same breath.
Yep. And you never know when those relationships, good or bad, are going to come back to roost. I remember when I was a young soldier, I was sent over to Jordan to do an MTT that nobody else wanted to do. And it was my first real job as a team leader in Delta Force, and it was training the Jordanian Special Forces teams. And met a really good friend over there. That he was a young captain, and I was a young NCO, and for no other reason than just two guys that got along, having fun together, we became very close friends. And then fast forward 25 years later, there was a major contract that was out to bid in Jordan, and I was bidding on it, and he was the guy that was making the decision. So again, I didn't think about it 25 years ago. I didn't think, hey, 25 years from now, he's going to do something for me. I just did it because we were friends. And so relationships are important in your daily life, but they can also build your life and enrich your life later on. So it's important to establish those.
Yeah, 100%. Everything good and bad in your life comes through relationships. I always tell that.
It really does. It's you can know a whole lot of stuff, but if you don't know the right people, none of that stuff matters. So it's important to know things, but it's also important to know people and for them to know you and know you as a good person.
Yeah, that's we always hear it's not about what you know, it's who you know. But the other huge thing, like you just said, it's who knows you, who believes they
that's correct.
You, man.
Yeah.
That's this is good stuff.
And you said something there that's really important. So it's establishing not only a relationship, but a relationship of trust. And that's a really, really key component of that.
100%. That's the magic. That's really what makes it work. Was there anything else that they missed in the movie that you wish would have gotten in there, or something about the story that you want that people should know about?
No, man, I don't know how you could shove any more in that movie. There was a lot in there.
Right.
I mean, we did a lot of other stuff prior to that day that was also pretty special stuff. And you could make another movie about it, even those, like the Osmond Auto raid or the Salad raid. Those were really great special operations missions, and they kind of just, because of October 3rd, they kind of faded into the background, but you could write a story about each and every one of those and the people that did it.
Wow. Sounds like it was
really hard to throw that. Yeah. Really hard to throw that into a 2-hour event. But
yeah, man, they need to make a series about it. It was so good. Like let us get it to get the full picture. That's good stuff. That's interesting. Then we were actually just kind of touching on this, lessons from war that relate to life. Any of them come to mind?
Yeah, a lot of them. I have lived a really, really good life since leaving the Army. And when I was in the Army, I loved what I did. But a lot of the values that I learned from other people serving in the Army, I carried forward with me into the business world and into my professional and personal life. And they work as well in outside of the military as they did when they were in. Things like being reliable to the people that depend on you, being honest, trustworthy, those kind of things that you can't. Those are the basics of soldiering. And they work in the civilian world too, and they work in business. Preparation is really, really important, and learning how to systematically prepare for things that you learn in the Army or in Marine. I don't want to just say the Army, but in the military in general, Marine Corps, Air Force, Navy. But that systematic approach to solving problems and
paragraph order.
Yes, absolutely. You would be surprised at how many times I've used that 5-paragraph order on a business plan.
Yes,
and I'm telling you, it works just as good in there, right? But being able to systematically break a problem down and come up with a mission essential task list, and the implied tasks that go with it, and it just puts you miles ahead of others that may have a high powered MBA from an Ivy League school, but they haven't been out there and had their boots on the ground and had their nose bloodied. And I'm telling you, you'll be surprised at how many people you run circle around with just those organizational skills that you learn in the military. And like I said, I use that 5-paragraph order every day in my life. Of course, you have to change the titles of them, because when you get down to the 3rd paragraph of execution, it kind of scares some people. But
right.
But you can wordsmith it around, but the process is the same, and it's very, very helpful. And we built the whiskey business on a 5-paragraph operations order, and so it works. But the discipline that goes with it and stuff like that, there's no substitute for that. That's real valuable education. I think it's more valuable than a lot of the high-powered degrees you get from some of these colleges. But I know it has been for me.
Yes, sir. I couldn't agree more. I was sitting there getting my master's degree, and I was like, like I just learned. I built my life off of the grace of God, the military discipline that I got, that I just just wouldn't let my disciplines go, you know, and then you can just take them and put them into things. And then just that whole grittiness of being able to prioritize and execute, you know, and hammer on a thing until you get through, you know. That's one of the best stinking educations. That's the best education I got from a human, you know.
Absolutely. You know, and I can't remember who it was, but I'm going to plagiarize his statement. But I think he was an admiral in the Navy. He said something to the extent of make your bed, right? You know, and that's stuff that I have never forgotten, you know. And I wasn't doing that when I went in the Army, but I damn sure did it when I came out, you know. But just following that, getting up in the morning and you know, being disciplined, following a schedule, you know, learning how to plan things and forecast things, manage programs. You know, those are very, very valuable skills to learn. And there's really no place better to learn them than in the military.
100%. And the resilience you get, you know, sometimes I hear my civilian guys talking about, you know, moaning about this or that. And I'm like, look, man, if we're not cold and wet, this doesn't suck yet. Like,
right.
You know, I just am not gonna let myself forget how that feels. You know, we can hammer through this trash. We'll figure it out, you know.
Absolutely right.
Good stuff. Advice to young men that are thinking about getting into the military, or young women, but you know, folks that are thinking about that undertaking. Anything come to mind?
So there are no shortcuts, right? You know, you go in and pick, you're talking about going to the military or going into executive protection or whatever that is. You got to pay your dues, right? There's no shortcuts to it. You got to come in and start at the bottom, work your way up. Don't be afraid to get out there and get your hands dirty, because that shortcut, you know, you may make it an easier day, you know, now, but sooner or later you're going to pay for it. So get in there, learn the stuff from the ground up, do your time in the ranks. And then take every day seriously. Volunteer for as much as you can, you know, and not only the easy stuff, but the hard stuff too. Because that's just like we said before, that's the hard stuff is what teaches you the true lessons in life. But you gotta be brave enough to stick your nose out there and get and fail, right? I mean, so many people are afraid of failing, what they're going to look like in front of other people, and what are people going to think if you know, if I don't do well. Don't worry about what they're thinking. Get out there and you take your licks. And you might fail. In fact, you will fail, and you should.
It's part of the game. It's part of the process.
It's part of it, right? And you know, you fail early, and then you get stronger. Come back, and then at some point you become invincible. And but it's not an easy road. And don't take shortcuts. Get out there and don't be afraid to fail. You know, I can tell you, when I was a young guy in 5th group, there were a lot of guys my age that were saying, hey, you know, I'm going to go over and try out for Delta. And the biggest deterrent to them wasn't that they weren't ready for it, because there were a lot of them that were bigger, stronger, faster, and certainly smarter than I was, but they were afraid of what they would look like if they failed, and what would people think of them. And you know, consequently, they never tried, and then you never succeed. You know, you got to get out there and stick your nose to it, and you got to get bloodied, and pretty soon you learn to move your nose a little bit, right? So, but there's no shortcuts to it, and it can be painful and difficult, but it's okay. You're going to make it. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. The whole failure thing, man, and even for me, guys, it looks sometimes at the stuff that I've been lucky enough to get away with by the grace of God. You know, I look in the mirror and I'm like, look, man, I'm just the one guy that's like, I'm gonna go try this or I'm gonna die. And if I die, it's a good death. And, you know, by the grace of God, you know, look, and then after a while, you always have a healthy respect and fear for things, because you know you're not invincible, but you really do start to become kind of unstoppable. You're going, you fail, it's like a speed bump. And actually now when I fail or lose, I'm a little more, I know that I learned so much. Whereas when I win, I'm kind of like scared, because I'm like, look, I'll wake up the next day after having like a successful event or something, and I'm like, you're only as good as your next move. Young man, figure those are rounds down range. Boom, they're already gone. You are only as good as your next move.
Absolutely.
Calibrate and get back to the fight, man.
Yeah. And the only way to really get true confidence
Mhm.
is to get up from failure.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
You can have a false sense of confidence. If you go out there and you go up against something that's easy, you do the things that are easy and you're
Mhm.
good at it and you feel confident from that, it's false sense of confidence. You can't
Scary.
feel confident until you get out there and get your ass handed to you a few times.
Yeah.
And then you realize, hey, look, I'm not as good as I thought I was, but I'm not as bad as I thought I was either. So,
Yeah.
but that's the only way to learn.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it's where you learn the good stuff. It's where you learn about yourself. Confidence comes from experience with yourself.
Absolutely.
Competence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said.
No, thank you, sir. Yeah, that's good stuff right there. So y'all get out, go for it. Hammer. So you spent some time counter narcotics and terrorism across the globe and things like that. What was that like, if you can talk about it and kind of paint a picture of that experience?
Yeah. So, when I went into the unit, it was a different world, right? I would say that post uh, Desert Storm, the Army started changing, special operations started changing a little bit as well. You were working more in larger elements, doing, raids and ambushes and direct action target hits. But when I got to the unit, they were still working in a smaller team. So I liked it. I like both really. It's fun
Yeah.
to work in a big, powerful, heavy hitting unit. There's a lot of fun in that. But it was also fun to work in, as a one or two man, 4-man team,
Mhm.
and go out and they give you a mission and then tell you, hey, I don't care how you do it, just go do it, but be creative in the way you do it. And you know, Panama was a pretty good example of that. When that first started, it was started out as Operation Blue Spoon, and
Okay.
it was really just a 4-man team going down to either kill or capture Manuel Noriega.
Mm.
And because of his relationship to Pablo Escobar and the drug cartel,
Yeah.
and of course, it grew into what became Just Cause. But the whole process of planning these small unit operations where you're 2 guys going into Beirut, Lebanon, and stuff like that. Um, that was a lot of fun.
Wow.
And more important than being fun, you really learn a lot because you're going over the details, and it's just you and maybe one or two other people, and so it's got to be right
It's
because
got to be right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that I learned a lot from that, but also was lucky enough to kind of step into the other part too when we started doing squadron size operations and stuff like that, and I learned a lot from that too. So, but
Wow.
um, all of those experiences really made me a better thinker,
Mhm.
better tactical person.
Yeah.
Um, it just made me a more well-rounded soldier.
Wow.
But there was something pretty cool about going out and 2 guys getting a job, and you get to go out and be creative in how you apply it. You hear some really wacky ideas, but you hear some pretty good ones too. But but yeah, it was fun. It required a lot of creativity. But again, you're doing basic stuff. It's just how do you get there and how do you get out and how do you disguise those things? So but when it all boiled down to it, it's just shooting, moving, and communicating, right? And so, but it was fun to work in smaller teams.
Outstanding. Interesting. What would you say about, keys to leadership and being a good leader?
Yeah, to avoid sounding cliche, you can't. There's no substitute for leadership by example, right?
Mm.
If your teammates believe that you're willing to suffer right along with them, and you don't see a leadership opportunity as an opportunity to serve yourself,
Mm.
you're going to build loyalty in your teammates,
Yeah.
and it's a two-way street. You got to be loyal to them as well, and build those relationships of trust with them, and realize that you have you have leaders, but leaders don't really have followers. I don't like to call them followers. They have supporters, right? Because they can choose to walk away from you at any moment,
They can
right? So
turn on you at any moment.
yeah, they can either support you, or not support you. It's not about following you. It's more about supporting you in your decisions. And the only way they're going to support you in your decisions is if they believe that you're one, you're sound in those decisions, and two, that you're not doing it at their expense. And they may buy that once or twice, but if that's a habit with you, you're not gonna be successful as a leader for very long. So you have to look at them as, hey, look, what can I do to win this person's trust and his support? Because I'm going to need him in combat. But at the same time, realizing that when the call comes, he's going to need you as well. So you gotta step up. You can't run off to the top when the shooting starts. You got to be there, from start to finish.
Yeah, 100%. That's that relationship equity, kind of like relationships of trust kind of thing happen.
Yeah.
It's a cyclical thing, and that's one of the social dynamics I teach is like, we might be different in our role, but we're equal in glory. As an employer, I need my guys on the ground to represent my brand. Like as a detail leader, I need those guys out front. Like I need you, and yeah, you need me to help provide the opportunity and all that stuff. But we are like, I need you just like you need me. And this is a cyclical relationship. And obviously the military thing really drives that home. When you have a platoon sergeant or an officer that had come, I still remember the best ones I had. And I remember looking over next to me, and one of my lieutenants sleeping in the mud right next to me, and I remember staring at him, and I was a little Lance Corporal, and I'm like staring at him, and he picked this, how it is. We picked the worst spot imaginable to bivouac, of course, like, oh, there's a swamp with a briar patch in the middle. We're sleeping in the briar patch, we're up there, we got water up to, we're all laying there in the water, and I'm on watch. And I remember looking over, and he took the first watch or one of the watches, and I was like, wow, he didn't have to do that. And I'm watching him submerged in the water trying to sleep, and I'm like, wow, I follow this man to the end of the world right now.
Yep, it goes a long way, doesn't it?
Yeah, man.
And the higher you move up, the more people you account to.
Yeah.
And when you're that private, you're just taking care of yourself. But when you get to the further you move up that chain of command, the more people you account to, up and down that chain of command.
Yeah.
And left and right. So if anybody sees it as an easy job and an easy way out, then they're in the wrong line of work, because leadership is you're getting up earlier, you're going home later, and you're going to give credit for all the good stuff to other people, and you're going to take responsibility for all the bad stuff.
Yes, that's true leadership. I love it, man. That's good stuff. Protect your guys, man, and they'll protect you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So I mean, of course, I have to ask a question about longevity, with the career you've had and the things you've been able to do. What would you say would be some keys to longevity for somebody who's doing things like you were doing, or just in life? How do you last in these games?
Yeah, I guess we're talking about physical longevity and emotional and spiritual and psychological longevity as well. So, and they kind of go hand in hand. So
how do you come out and act?
Yeah. Well, physical longevity, there's a little bit of luck in it. I mean, I was blessed with I wasn't the biggest, the fastest, or the strongest, but I was pretty durable. I didn't get a lot of injuries when I was in, and a lot of that is luck. I mean, if you're in a helicopter crash or something, you break your back, that's not any fault of your own. But my body held up pretty well over the years. I mean, I have no real long-term lasting injuries from that, and I'm very, very lucky, because most of my buddies have had double knee replacements or hip replacements or neck problems, but I was fairly lucky in that department. I think learning to manage expectations also is extremely important in doing a job like that. Don't expect things to always be perfect. In fact, a perfect way to set yourself up for disappointment is to expect things to go good. You could expect things to go bad. You can expect to have a lot of bad days and a few good ones, but don't be disappointed with setbacks. It kind of goes back to that persistence we talked about before. It's just an opportunity to learn something. It's an opportunity to make yourself a better person and hone your skills, on something that's not necessarily fun, but can be good for you. So, and that's in every part of life, in relationships with your family and your friends and your colleagues at work, in the daily tactics and techniques and procedures. I mean, sometimes you run into setbacks, and I think the guys that expect things to run smoothly or to run perfectly, oftentimes that can be very discouraging when you wake up day after day after day and they're not running the way you want them to run.
Yeah.
You know, I just kind of always expected things to be rough, and so
Made you more resilient.
yeah, so when they weren't rough, I thought, well, that was really a great day. But when they were rough, I didn't get really discouraged by it. And I think you can last a lot longer emotionally if you set yourself up going, don't expect things to always go the way you want them to go.
Wow.
You know, so managing your expectations in life, and then of course, you know, the basics of eating healthy for physical resilience and longevity, eating healthy, maintain a good PT program, you know, and be disciplined in that, work out every day, and you know, don't skip, don't take shortcuts, eat good, work out, sleep good when you can. You know, it's often hard to do. But then and then hope for a little bit of luck, and don't get injured in a jump or a helicopter crash, or don't get shot, you know, those kind of things, right? IEDs, right? So, but if everything else aside, if you take care of yourself physically and you learn to manage expectations, then there's no reason you can't spend a lifetime doing that job.
Wow.
You know,
That's awesome.
Don't expect yourself to be a Superman. You know, there's going to be days where you're scared to death.
Yeah.
You know, and that doesn't make you a lesser man. It just makes you a man, you know, and no more, no less. Get up the next day, go, hey, you know, I got over it. I'm going to keep moving.
Awesome. There's some good stuff. I'm taking some notes for those follow-on questions. That whole expectations thing, I recently, because I'm my own toughest critic, right? And I take pride in that. You know, don't no one love you like yourself. Your mama loves you, but she can't save you. So you better be, you better be, you better be tightening yourself up. So I always have these kind of high standards, and I started to realize someone close to me gave me some feedback the other day and was like, you know, you used to be like a lot more fun and happy-go-lucky and this, that, and the next thing, didn't matter what was going on. And now you're getting a little like kind of cynical and things like that. And I was like, you know, maybe because I'm pushing myself so hard, like I am getting a little bit beat down, and it caused me to look inside myself and kind of be like, look, man, like you got all the tools to this isn't like you're not cold and wet, you know what I mean? Like you have all the tools to manage this and be a respectable warrior. Because I think the how well we suffer says so much about, you know, how we are inside, and how that's what makes the difference. You know, the guys, if you can suffer well, you're a legend, you know. Really
great insight there. You know, it isn't how you acting when you're winning,
when it was good.
It isn't how you're acting when you're when you're winning, man. It's how you're acting when you're on the bottom.
Yeah.
And you're getting kicked in the head. Anybody can be a hero when they're throwing the punches, man. But it's how you're doing when you're getting them.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's very insightful, Byron.
No, thank you, sir. Yeah, man. So I recalibrated, and fortunately, in the next 48 hours, they were like, you know, I mentioned that to you the other day, and looks like you fixed yourself real quick. And I was like, okay, good, because you know, you might watch me go through all kinds of things, but I'm gonna go through it, you know, with the grace of God, and I'm gonna go through it in a respectable way. You know,
right. But it really kind of sums up bravery, right? I mean, and courage, because anybody can be brave when there's nothing to be afraid of, but when you're scared to death, that's the only time you can be brave.
Yeah, and it's an honor. It's an honor to have an opportunity. How do you deal with fear, sir? You know, that's when I know that a lot of people get stuck on. You know, what was
same way everybody else does. There's times when you're scared, and it's I think that serving with great soldiers has taught me that, you know, yes, you are going to be afraid, but it's not the fact that you're afraid so much as how you deal with it. Right? Can you function when you're afraid? And there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on emotionally. There's a lot going on spiritually. There's a lot going on physically. You got bodies just pumping full of transmitters and the chemistry that's going on is crazy. So you do as much as you can do to prepare yourself in training for those days, but there's no substitute for the real thing. But don't be too hard on yourself for being afraid. You're supposed to be, and I used to tell my guys on my team, if you see a guy walking across a minefield or an artillery barrage, and he can't hear and he can't see, and is he brave?
No, he has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, he has no idea what's going on.
Right? We're supposed to say a prayer for him.
So fear
yeah.
is another sense, right? It's telling you, hey, be careful, something bad can happen. Right. So you should listen to it and help it. It should help you in your decision-making process. Yeah. Right. But you got to be able to control that fear to be able to make it productive. Right. Yep. So I don't want to serve with somebody who's fearless. Right. Just like I don't want to serve with someone who's blind or can't hear. Yeah. Right. Not in combat. I want somebody who's afraid and they understand the threats, but they're capable of working through that fear and coming up with a solution to it. Right. So fear is a good thing if you learn how to master it and use it to help you make a decision. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Yeah. And so many people are afraid. Oh, I don't want to tell you I'm afraid. Hey, I hope you were afraid.
Yeah, you should be a little bit afraid.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. But at the same time, you can't let it just curl you up into a fetal position and just quit thinking. Right. Because I'm not going to be that guy that gets bayoneted in a foxhole because I'm afraid. I'm going to go down and fight. And I might be afraid, but I'm going to go down shooting. Yep. And
I'm gonna fight like I'm afraid. Do you fight?
Yes, exactly. I'm gonna fight like I'm scared to death.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I don't. I think fear is a good thing. Yeah. I think it's just and you can learn to make it an ally through training and through sharing experiences with your colleagues. Like, hey, how do you deal with that? And rehearsing it, right? Because it's real and it can be an advantage or a disadvantage. I think one of the analogies I used to use with Burke was, why do you train in jiu-jitsu in a mat? Why do you do combatives in a mat room as a Delta Force operator? When you're not going to be alone and you're going to have a gun and you're going to have, fast movers dropping stuff and little birds shooting and the chances of you being in a hand-to-hand combat are very, very slim. And I agree, but first of all, are you willing to give that up and say, okay, I'll be good at all this other stuff, but if I run into a Russian soldier on the battlefield, I know he can beat me physically, but I'm gonna rely on my pistol. No, you should never, ever, ever submit or admit defeat in any area of combat, whether it's standing there with a uniform and nothing else, or all the way up to a nuclear bomb. You should be able to say, I'm going to master every one of them all the way up as a soldier. But it's important to train in it because I think that it's one of the best mediums for
antidote to it,
replicating stress that you might see to some extent in combat. So when you're in hand to hand and you know that you're in there swinging and going at it, and you know that, hey, this guy's trying to knock me out, a lot of the body chemistry and the emotional and psychological stress is the same, maybe not to the same level, but why not try to capture that in training let's do a simulated fight on the mat before we go to a life and death fight. Wouldn't it be nice to kind of do that and rehearse that at some point, right? So I know that there were guys later on in life. When I first got in the Army, there was most of the NCOs who led me had either been to jail a number of times, but all of them had certainly been in bar fights. And as I got older, I found that a lot of my soldiers the teammates that I worked with, younger ones, because the Army became, the military in general became more critical. It was like, if you have those kind of soldiers, they kind of weeded them out of the Army, right? And I would find guys who were like these physical specimens, and we had a questionnaire. When was the last time you were in a bar fight? And most of them said never. Yeah. And I'm going, so the very first fight you're going to be in is going to be to the death. Yeah. Right. Wouldn't it be nice to get a couple of those under your belt in training? So going back to the fear thing, I got off on a tangent there. It's it's good to be afraid and try to find those things that you can do to put you in a situation where you experience fear, because of the consequences of like rock climbing or skydiving or boxing or jujitsu or mixed martial arts. Those things have consequences. You pay for those things when you screw them up, right? So they're good for replicating or kind of giving you a little bit of dose of what you're going to be experiencing when you're in combat.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really good. Microdose, overcome a lot of it with competence and experience. So you know what to do, and do what you can in training. That honestly, I think that's great. And have an intimate relationship with fear. Like I look for when I'm setting my goals and I'm moving to try to like move my life forward or do what I believe I was sent here to do. Like, it's got to be a little bigger than me. It's got to be a little scary. That's how I know we're really doing something.
I think that's really the definition of an adventurer, right? I mean,
yeah,
guys that go out and like do crazy stuff, because it's like I want to learn to master that fear.
Yeah,
and, I like the feeling. You learn to become partners with it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hello, darkness, my old friend. Like, here we are. This is where we're supposed to be. Now we're cooking with tartar sauce, as we like to say.
Love it.
That's good stuff. Hardest lesson you learned on the battlefield?
Yeah, man, I've learned a lot of hard lessons, but and it weren't really lessons I learned. They were lessons I relearned. I remember hearing from my old NCOs when I was in 5th group guy, and you always go and prepare. Don't ever go into the same LZ twice, right? Things like that, the basics. And then as you become more and more successful in the things that you do, a lot of times you may think, hey, it worked last time, so I'll do it again.
Yeah.
Right. And what's the old cliche? The greatest enemy of change is success, right?
Really? I haven't heard that one. That's a good one, though.
Yeah. So you do it over and over and over again, and every time you do it, the other guys get a little smarter, but you think, okay, it worked, I'll do it again. And so you're not changing up.
Yeah.
And so, but they are.
Yeah, their position.
And sooner or later, they come up with a game plan that works, and you pay for it, right? Wow. So I think that when you're winning, which is what we all want to be doing, keep in mind that if you keep moving down that path, even though it is successful, sooner or later it's coming. And so it's hard to be creative though when you're winning, right? It's hard to devise a game plan. What do I need to do? And I guess a good sports analogy would be like a University of Alabama having to play Georgia twice in the same season.
Yeah.
Right. They beat them pretty good the first time, but they went back and they're thinking, hey, we'll go back with the same plan. But Georgia came back with a whole new game.
Yeah.
And beat them in the national, right? So it's difficult. How do you prepare for things that you haven't seen before? Right. But you do know that if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, somebody's watching.
Yeah.
And they're thinking. And they're just as smart as we are. Right. You have to assume that the bad guys are just as smarter than you are. You can't go in and go, oh, they'll never figure it out, because they will. and I've seen that a couple of times. So I guess the take home point is that don't keep repeating things, and realize that be inward looking and realize that just because it worked this time doesn't mean it's going to work time after time after time. And I think we fell into that trap a little bit in Mogadishu.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. That's a really good one, because it's counterintuitive. It's something that in my life I've really aimed to implement, because I've had some like successful events and did little things like this. And I always know that there's other people that are, well, one, they're catching up with what we're doing, but at the same time, it's more than that. It's like, it's counterintuitive because it requires a death of something that has worked, almost like a death of you.
Yes.
In some ways.
Yes.
It does. But it's for the progress. You have to evolve. If you are not evolving, you are a sitting duck. You are devolving, I'll just say, and That's in life, and that's especially on the battlefield where you have another human opponent assessing you and maneuvering.
Yep.
That's huge, man. That's good stuff. That's some wisdom. This has been good.
Yeah, well, it's not mine. I mean, it's stuff that you learn. We all learn, when you're young soldiers. Hey, man, don't establish patterns. But when they're working, it's like, man, these things are working great. Let's keep going.
Yeah. It's easy. It's seductive.
Yeah.
Proudest moment you had on the field?
So not a lot of people know this, but I went to Ranger School really, really late in my career, and I kind of went on a bet. I had a buddy of mine that we went out on the range, and we had a shooting competition, and I lost, and so I went to Ranger School, and if he had won, he was going to have to go to the Special Forces qual course, and so I went to Ranger School. I was a Delta Force team leader when I went, and I got to go with a bunch of young, brand new Army privates, and of course I you're all Ranger buddies. You're sleeping in the same foxhole. Nobody knows where you come from, and it doesn't matter because you're all miserable together. And then I was fortunate enough to see those same young guys almost a year later to the date.
Wow.
And I remember when we were on our last exercise in Ranger School, we were all under a poncho with a red lens flashlight, and we were putting together our final mission. And so in Mogadishu, we were at the helicopter, and it was basically that same group of guys that I've been to Ranger School with, but now they're not kids in Ranger School anymore. They're badass warriors.
Grown men.
So watching those guys grow up and become the men that they became, the magnificent human beings that they are today, was the thing I was most proud of.
Wow.
It was really cool. And
that's really cool. Yeah, that's an awesome experience in life. I don't know. I mean, I always think nothing happens, everything happens for a reason, but those synchronistic moments in life, you can't, they just happen, it's beautiful to do like that.
Yeah.
Wow. So Hooten Young, whiskey, cigars, what's the story behind it? Let us know what you guys have been up to out there.
Yeah, well, loving it, having a lot of fun. Whiskey's been in my family for a while. My family came to Texas in the 1840s from the Appalachian Mountains, and they kind of brought the whiskey tradition with them from Appalachia. My grandfather made it, my dad made it, and the difference is I'm legal. So
legit.
Yeah, but I have a really good friend that I hang out with here in Orlando, and we drank a lot of whiskey. We smoked a lot of cigars, and one day in 2018, it would have been in the late summer of 2018, the 25th anniversary for Gothic Serpent was coming up.
Wow.
And we had another friend of ours from Cuba, and he said, hey, I said, hey, can you make my buddies some cigars for their reunion? And he said, sure. How many do you want? I said, I'll take 300 of them. So he handmade 300 cigars, and we made the labels at home, and we put them on with glue sticks, and they were gifts, just things you'd give out to your buddies at a reunion.
Yeah.
And we had so many requests for orders of them that we decided to go into business. We give a percentage of what we make to veterans causes. Started out as a hobby, kind of a fun thing, and then of course we got the whiskey in it, because you can't smoke a cigar without a whiskey, and it really took off. We're we're very blessed. It's done very well. Wow. Delicious, outstanding whiskey and great cigars, and more importantly, you can't enjoy those things without sitting down with your buddies and having about an hour, 2 hour long, maybe sometimes a 4 or 5 hour long conversation. Over a glass of whiskey and a cigar, and it brings people together. It's kind of like the urban version of a campfire.
Yeah,
it's like you sit down, you smoke a cigar, you take it easy, and the things you learn, man, when you're smoking a cigar and having a good whiskey, and it brings people together, which is the part I like the most about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's fantastic. You guys got to go check them out. Just knowing that it's born out of that stuff means the world to me. And that's really cool. Solid. Well, I'm glad to hear that the company's doing good. It's an honor to know that, that stuff's been it's got like warrior lineage in it.
Yeah, it is
special.
Yeah, it does, and there's a lot of great warriors drinking it, which is a great source of pride for me. It does does my heart good to see old warriors sitting down and raising a glass to each other with Hooten and Young whiskey. So
yeah,
it's a very gratifying thing.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. That's that's one of those missions in life, and it bringing us together, and the therapy that comes from that, the healing that comes from that, the lives that get saved because of that. Really,
a lot of them.
Yeah, man. That's out here in the 1st Civilian Division, man. We need that stuff. So that's big. Last 2 questions. A habit that you'd suggest protectors look at that maybe either makes them a better protector or just helps them live a better life.
Yeah, give yourself a schedule and hold yourself to it. It doesn't have to be a hard one, but don't ever let a day go by where you didn't follow some sort of routine. Those are important to me. So it's it doesn't have to be a hard one, but get up in the morning, make your bed, sit down at a certain time, get your cup of coffee, and log on, get on to work at a certain time, and hold yourself to that standard.
Yeah.
Right? And because it's so easy to get soft over the years if you don't do that. Do something. A good buddy of mine named Dan Gelata says, do something hard every day.
Yeah. Heck
Right?
yeah.
Do at least one thing hard every day. And he says, like, yes. I said, well, give me an example. He goes, yesterday I walked down to my mailbox barefooted. And he goes, and that was my thing.
Stay hard.
I went outside and I mowed the yard, and it was 40 degrees, and I didn't wear a jacket. So little things just to kind of keep you on the edge, and it sounds funny, but you know what? It works.
It does 100%. And if nothing else, man, you get that mission, you get that itinerary, you got a mission now. Boom, die over that itinerary. Yep. That's what I always say.
Yep. Do something unpleasant every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And then the final question, what's it all for? How would you like to be remembered, sir?
I think one, a good soldier, a guy that stood his watch, nothing special, nothing more, nothing less, because there is nothing more or nothing less. Right. I stood my watch. I did it honorably, and you don't have to be a Delta operator to do that.
Yeah.
Just be a good soldier, good husband, good father, good friend. And if they could put those 4 words on my tombstone, then I've lived a successful life.
Wow. Outstanding.
But there's a lot in that, though. There's a lot of stuff that you got to do to be called, good friend, good father, good husband, good soldier. But there's a lot of implied tasks that go with that mission essential task list, right?
Yes, there are, man. That gives me some chills. That's good stuff. There's a lot that goes into those titles. No participation trophies, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Not on that stuff. Well, awesome. This has been tremendous. This has been a fantastic conversation, very rich with a lot of really powerful information for life and for so many things. Thank you so much for this time, sir.
It was an honor and a privilege to meet you, man. I look forward to meeting you in person, and I think I enjoyed the conversation more than you did, man. I think I would put you on my podcast.
Hey, anytime. It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, and best of luck in your endeavors out there. And if you ever need anything from me, any help, or any way I can. I'm 61 years old and I don't move or shoot nearly as good as I used to. But if I can put you in contact with someone, or if you need any help from me, I'm all on, man. I'm a fan. So whatever you need.
Likewise. And that means the world. That means the world. That stuff. That means the world. Thank you, sir. And then finally, where can people find you? I'm sure if you send over the links to the show notes, they'll be in the show notes, but just so they know. HootenYoung.com. Too easy. Done.
Yep.
HootenYoung.com.
Enjoy. And it was an honor and Semper Fi, and honor to meet you, man.
Yes, sir. Likewise. The honor is mine. The honor is mine. I can't wait to get this out. It's a lot of good stuff in here. And yes, sir. Thanks for the time and attention.
You bet, man. And reach out anytime.
Thank you. This is my MCK. There are many like it, but this one is mine. If you've got a firearm sitting around, a pistol that you are not doing anything with, get an MCK. They make them for every single model. If you want a micro conversion kit
that will turn your handgun into a force multiplier. Get one, man. They are ultra affordable. CAA, MCK micro conversion kits are changing the game, y'all. So if you don't have one, you need to get one. Get one. Your women, children, people that are less physically potent will be able to fire your firearm to farther distances with more accuracy. You will be able to fire your firearm to farther distances with more accuracy. I want to get one of these into the hands of 100,000 more protectors this year, because ultimately we are only as good as the nation is only as good as its protection. Your home is only as safe and as good as your ability to protect it. MCK, go get one. Drop your handgun in, take it to the next level. Out. Boom. Boom. Yo, what up? I hope you guys really enjoyed that episode. Hey, listen, in order to get more out of the brand, I want to encourage you to go join us on our social media platforms and join us at protectornation.com. We post different types of content on our different platforms at different times. You'll get blog posts, you'll get videos, you'll get real world combat engagements and things like that. So stay plugged in order to get the most out of the brand. In order to support us, also go to protectornation.com and buy something, or join forces with me on Patreon. You'll scroll down the homepage and you'll see the link. Anything you can give counts. Think about whatever you would lose in your cushions or like spend on McDonald's this month, $5 a month, whatever it is. That helps us make the world a better place by making good people dangerous. Anyways, this is Byron Rodgers, protector by nature and by trade, and I'll see you on the next piece of content, whether it's a video or podcast. Out.